Assalamu alaikum. Good day, everybody. My name is Dr. Darren Perrin. I'm from Roland Berger, and today I'll be your host for an exciting panel, Circular Economy, Shaping Sustainable Futures in the UAE. We have a great list of panelists for this discussion, which I'll introduce shortly. But before that, we would like to introduce and invite, please, Her Excellency, Dr. Shaka Salam Al-Tahiri. If you could please join onto the stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies and respected guests. Of course, it gives me a great pleasure to be with you here today to talk about a very meaningful but also a significant topic, which is circular economy with a climate change flavor. Of course, all of us knows that across the world, waste management is a pressing issue with not only environmental aspect, but also social and economic implications. And we continue to see that landfills continue to overflow, causing harm to our ecosystem, to the human health, but adding an impact on the climate change. Again, the conventional linear system has resulted in landfills that are overflowing with waste, but also overflowing with greenhouse gases concentrations that are melting the ice caps. Also air pollution that is bad for the health and suffering biodiversity due to the extensive land use. So for us, circular economy, on the other hand, is a very transformative economic model that addresses our needs without compromising the functioning of the biosphere of rapidly depleting the available limited resources. I'm very proud that here in UAE, the government launched the Circular Economy Policy 2021-2031 with the purpose of outlining some of the ways in which our nation can transition towards a more sustainable, low-carbon economy. It ensures that the country's natural, physical, human, and financial resources are used in the most efficient and meaningful way, with the goal of improving the quality of our residents' lives while also protecting or even enhancing the local and global environment. This model inherently embraces the reduction in the unnecessary consumption that we cause. Energy within the circular economy is derived from renewable resources, and energy systems are designed for maximum efficiency without compromising performance and living standards. I would like also to talk about the climate change strategy, the Abu Dhabi Climate Change Strategy, which was launched by the Environment Agency and approved in July, which is also a major driver to enhancing what we are talking about today, the circular economy. Through that strategy, we are aiming to reduce our emissions by 22% in 2027, thanks to more resilience on the renewable resources of energy that His Excellency providing us with in the Emirate. Furthermore, we have significantly reduced our resilience on the single-use plastic items through the dedicated Abu Dhabi single-use plastic policy. And we are very proud that it resulted in reducing more than 500,000 shopping bags annually. It also promotes the recovery of plastic bottles to get them recycled and reutilized in the system. And our goal is a recovery of more than 50% of our annual plastic bottles consumption in Abu Dhabi. From a government perspective, waste management and the circular economy are critical areas that are intertwined and that require careful planning, policies development, and implementation. We are currently in the process of developing the Abu Dhabi Waste Management Strategy that includes 6 strategic objectives and will implement more than 50 projects and initiatives with a certain, of course, time frame, all aimed at reducing, recycling, and properly treating our waste to stimulate a long-term and systematic approach to achieve the vision of becoming a net zero waste emirate by 2041. In conclusion, the shift towards a circular economy and improved waste management practices is not only a necessity for mitigating our environmental impact and challenges, but also we look at it as an opportunity. It can help to create a more resilient, efficient, and sustainable global society. Thank you so much, and I'm wishing the panel a very fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. A fantastic introduction there, very well said. I'd like to now introduce up to the stage, please, Dr. Richard Swannell from RAP, Carlos Silva Fellow from the ISWA President, Ali Al-Dahiri from the CEO of Tadweer, and Roland Marel as well, please. I thought we'd lost you for a minute. It's good. Richard, I'll start with you, if I may. Circular economy for you. How would you, very briefly, how would you describe circular economy? What's the key benefits?
So I think one of the things you can think about for a food system which was genuinely circular is that there is, everything that we produce is used in a productive way. So no food goes to waste. So you're thinking, therefore, the main thing, of course, for the food system is to try and feed humans, of course, and do that as effectively as possible. But where there are surpluses, get those to people who need it. But where there is also, there are feedstocks for other processes. So making sure that everything we get, if it's, for example, misshapen, can we use it as animal feed? Can we take it another route? Can we feed it to insects? Can we come up with useful ways of keeping it within the food system? And I think if we have that goal, that food is never waste and everything is used, we can make the best use of all the food on the planet, but also substantially reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the process.
Thanks for that, Richard. Carlos, I guess ISWA being world representation in terms of the Waste Association, you'd have a very global perspective. Please, can you tell us some of the differences of how circular economy is interpreted in different nations around the world?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Darren. Thank you very much for the invitation, for being here at this panel. For us, this topic of circular economy is of major importance because ISWA's missions, for those who doesn't know, ISWA is the International Solid Waste Association. It's have been founded in 1970, and our mission is to promote sustainable and professional waste management and the transition to a circular economy. So circular economy is part of our mission. But we really feel that currently, as you just mentioned, Darren, there is a kind of like a misunderstanding of what circular economy really is. I see in many countries consider circular economy as recycling, and it's totally different. It's much more than recycling. Circular economy is a system approach that you need to provide the overall management through the whole value chain. So we really need to develop this concept better. This is one of the roles ISWA is performing now to just support the transition from the current linear approach to this circular economy approach from the design phase to the downstream waste management system. So this is what we are really pursuing, and unfortunately, I still don't have like a concrete answer to what circular economy is, but we are working on that together with our several partners, and hopefully soon we will be able to really implement this new approach worldwide.
Thank you for that, Carlos. Ali, if I may take that over to you, how then within Tadweer as an operator, as regulator, in terms of how are you implementing circular economy within the region? How do you interpret it?
Sure, thank you. I guess I'm just going to pick up on an important point that Carlos mentioned, which is circular economy is beyond waste management, is beyond recycling. So we have to take a holistic view on the journey of the various streams of waste and start changing the mindset that each waste is actually a resource. So we have to start thinking of how we could raise awareness on reducing the amount of volumes that we use and generate in terms of waste. Look at ways on how we can segregate them. Segregation is key to enable an efficient infrastructure for recycling. And then finally is to what extent we can recover the value within the different streams of resources. So to answer your question is, it's really, you have to have a very wide and broad view and plan in place. It comes with awareness, it comes with having the capability on the infrastructure side, and then working closely with governments around policies, incentives, etc.
Thank you. I think there's another microphone, I think, also on the left. That's all good. But Monsieur Macho, Marion, within the European context, what do you think some of the key regulations and the framework there that can be used and lessons can be learnt within UAE from, say, Europe?
Good morning, everyone. In the European Union, we follow waste management hierarchy, which has also been adopted in France. First of all, we must limit waste production as much as possible by sufficiency. If this is not possible, we must aim for reuse to give a second life to product and therefore extend its lifetime. Then the material must be recycled as much as possible, which implies a global scale of recycled material flows. The non-recyclable part of the waste must be used to produce energy. Finally, the last part can go to landfill. Our first challenge is therefore to extend the lifetime of products and reduce pressure on resources. We manage this objective by regulations, regulatory regulation of authorization for waste in landfill, through taxation by increasing landfill taxes, and through the co-financing of collection systems and industrial waste recycling installation, with, for example, 300 million per year by ADEME to support these projects.
Thank you. Hello? Ah, there you go. Thank you for that. Ali, could you please explain to me, how do you think then those regulations that's been described there, how do you think the regulatory approach can work within the United Arab Emirates to help facilitate a circular economy?
Yes, definitely. I think the regulation is the backbone. It's the framework of how the sector can operate efficiently. So we are proud to be working closely with the stakeholders, in this case, the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi, the Ministry of Climate Change at federal level, to ensure that the policies enable both the public and the operators to achieve the maximum when it comes to managing the waste and adopting the best recycling practices. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are some KPIs and objectives, starting with, for example, diverting from landfill, which in our case we're trying to achieve an 80% landfill diversion by 2028. And then you start thinking about what would be some of the ideas and solutions that can enable that to happen. At Tadweer, we are embarking on a waste-to-energy facility. We are looking at also waste to sustainable aviation fuel, and we are exploring also some solutions around recovering value from the existing landfill.
Thank you. Carlos, I think you're going to get the unlucky question, but I'm going to ask it you all the same. The waste to energy. There's obviously many people will debate the role it has within the circular economy. And clearly, as we are on a transitioning piece, it's about transitioning towards a circular economy. There's recovering value from material, not losing it through to landfill. At a global level and from a global perspective, you comfortable that waste to energy has a key role to play within the circular economy?
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you very much for that. And like also here, we have usually we have some misunderstanding on the role of waste to energy and also on the role of sanitary landfills. But we must say that both are final sinks, and final sinks are always needed in any system that we have currently and in the future, because we need really to understand that no matter what you do from the beginning to the end, there will always be some remainings. We still cannot afford to make materials disappear. It's simply against physics laws. So we really need the final things at the end of any process. But what we really need to understand is the focus should not be on the final things. The focus should be upstream. So the focus should be on prevention. The focus should be on reduction, reuse, and recycling. But when you have a whole, let's say, urbanized society, you need to provide adequate treatment for the remainings. And waste to energy plays a very important role on that sense, because it can deal with the remainings, it can transform the remainings into renewable energy, and then it can provide this renewable energy for many purposes, for many chains. And we also must mention that providing this renewable energy, we can substitute fossil fuels, so it also helps in the decarbonizing the economies. So it's a whole cycle. It's an interconnected sequence of actions, and we must have them all in place.
Thank you, Vida. Richard, I guess we're talking there the need for end solutions, the need for in order to take the whole life cycle into account. When I look at reports coming out and we're saying we only have 7% global circularity rates, that doesn't feel to me like we're delivering against a circular economy. We hear lots of good reports, but 7% doesn't sound like a very high value. What do you think some of the barriers are of why we're at those levels, and how can we address those barriers and take some of those lessons from places like the UK and implement those within the UAE?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, Darren. I guess part of this is us really not understanding the scale of the problem. We've all talked about it. And a third of all the food that is produced on the planet, roughly speaking, is wasted every single year. And from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective, that's 8 to 10% of total greenhouse gas emissions, which if food waste was a country, and it would be a very smelly country, it would actually be the third biggest emitter on the planet. So as a result of that, because we don't know that, our food systems at the moment are not designed to do exactly what everybody's been talking about, follow the waste hierarchy, because we don't measure food waste right through the system. And if you don't measure, you don't manage. And so what we found is that a relatively simple approach, target measure, act, setting clear targets, particularly within businesses, but that can also work for governments and municipalities and cities. Targets, and the obvious one is halving food waste by 2030, the SDG 12.3. Measure using a common methodology, and there is such common methodologies. There is an international protocol, which is now being turned into an international standard. So that means we can all report in the same way. But once you know how much you're wasting, you can then act upon it. Now you think, okay, so what impact has that had? Well, the first company to actually achieve the 50% reduction target was IKEA. Did that a year ago, did it in 33 countries, and we know that there are many others that are on the cusp of hitting that level. So this really can work and can drive change. And businesses that do this often get a good return. £7 back, $7 back for every $1 invested is not uncommon in food waste reduction activities.
So Ali, as Richard discussing there, that sounds great opportunity that can be capitalised within the region. If you'd like to expand more, where else do you think the opportunities are in the region for circular economy that you'd like to see?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, I totally agree with the comments of my colleague. I think it's not one solution and one model or one template that fits all. I think, like was suggested, you need to get down to understanding what are the main contributors to generating the mass of the volumes of waste, and then based on that start doing several and multiple initiatives and efforts around them, whether they are reducing them from the first place or preventing them, or driving some efficiency around enabling them to be recyclable or repurposed, right? So it's not really one solution that fits all, but it's many things. We've looked at some new technologies where you can take organic or food waste, for example, and convert it into fertilizers or composite, etc. I think that's great, but that's alone is not the solution, right? Because it will only manage a fraction or a percentage of the total volumes of that specific stream.
Thank you for that. When we talk around specific streams, one of the, I guess, elephants in the room is plastics in many ways. If I can ask the question of Monsieur Marion, actually, in terms of plastics and Europe, how have plastics been addressed within a European context?
Well, our world has become accustomed to this simplicity of plastics. But we now understand that our plastic world poses important challenges for us. We find plastic in our seas, in our oceans, in our soils, our food, and even in our body. Even if 99% of the plastic was correctly collected and recycled, which is not the case, the remaining 1% would represent 50,000 tons per year just in France. We therefore have European objectives and specific French objectives. In Europe, the 2021 Single-Use Plastic Directive bans a certain number of plastic products, such as cups and straws, and requires recycled materials in certain packaging. The PPWR regulation on packaging and waste packaging consider reducing packaging, making it reusable, and reinforces their containers with recycled material. France has the ambition to move toward 100% plastic recycling. On the other hand, a calendar until 2040 plans a series of obligations: reuse of plastics, ban in certain sectors such as fast food restaurants, and ultimately the ban of single-use plastic packaging in 2040.
Thank you for that. I mean, to me, plastics aren't bad. Plastics are bad when you lose them. So, we've designed a material there to last forever, to be flexible for lots of applications through healthcare, throughout different sectors. So it's only when you lose them when they become an issue. So I think there's a real need still for plastics, but there's not a need to lose them and not keep them within the circular system. Is there any other examples, Carlos, you could give us from other countries of the world of specific materials with some good examples of circular economy in applications?
Well, I just want to pick up from your point, Darren. Like we also believe that plastics are not the devil. Like really, it's as any material as we have. The problem is when you mismanage the material. And we are, from ISVA side, we are participating in this international negotiating committee for the plastic agreement. And we are advocating there that you cannot solve the problem just by banning plastics, because the problem goes much beyond plastics. We really need a system approach. We need to solve the waste crisis. Okay, we have plastics as the most visible part of it, because as we just heard, it ends up in the oceans, it ends up in the rivers, but it's not only the problem. The problem is the whole, let's say, failure of the current waste management system, where we still have 40% of the waste in the world going to inadequate sites. And we are in the 21st century. It's unacceptable to have this situation. We need to address the problem with a system approach, with a strategic approach, and then we need to really learn from successful stories, from good examples, as you mentioned. So, like from our side, from ISVA side, we have like a INC4 in next April in Canada. What we are doing from now, or since our World Congress we had like a month ago, is collecting good case studies that are really showing success in dealing with plastics. And we will present it as a contribution during the next INC, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can maximize, we can leverage current efforts and make the change.
Thanks for that, Carlos. I mean, Richard, just building on that a little bit, we're starting to talk here about bigger systems-based thinking, alternative business models is often referenced when we talk around circular economy. Can you expand on that a little bit more around what do we mean by alternative business models when thinking of a circular economy?
Yeah, and there's a number of examples, Darren, I think we can draw on here. A classic, for example, in the plastics area is the drive to refills. Now, you can actually get an awfully long way in reducing the impact, the amount of plastics you need by using refill packs, and you can make refill packs 100% recyclable. So there's some real opportunities there. You can also go in-store reuse, where you bring back items and refill directly. So that's another classic way of looking at this. Textiles, if you look at clothing, there's some really interesting business models coming through at the moment, where people are not only selling what they're now calling vintage clothes, which for me is actually clothing that I just wore about 10 years ago, but these are vintage clothes that people are now selling, and there's peer-to-peer selling as part of that process, and people are thinking in terms of durable items that can get repaired and go back into the economy multiple times. And also the other thing is design for recyclability. So you're actually planning and saying, if I'm going to make a particular product, be it an item of clothing, be it actually a food product, or be it actually a plastics product, is there a market for that item when it's ended its first life? Because if we're genuinely thinking about systems thinking, then we've got to design it from scratch and make sure it's always in there. And new business models are a key part of making that happen. And what's really interesting about some of those new business models is these innovations can be more successful commercially than our existing ones. And therefore, there's a real drive, I think, to explore them in more detail.
So I always hate the phrase, but a win-win situation, both from an economic perspective as well as an environmental perspective. So
I think that's true. I think the key thing is, and this is where the new business models is particularly interesting to see how that develops, because they are growing fast, because that's often disruptive to the system. But I think what they can do is show the way to a whole system transformation. So, yeah, I mean, is everything as simple as that? No. Design for recyclability needs planning, needs understanding what can be done within a particular system, taking the plastics. Is it 100% recyclable? Have I designed it for that purpose? Nonetheless, I think often, there is a very strong business case as well as an environmental case to move towards system transformation and the circular economy.
Thank you for that. I'm very conscious in terms of where we're at with time, so I want to make sure we do stay on time. So if I can go around probably with a last question really for each of you, and I'm probably going to ask you each the same question, starting with yourself, Monsieur Marion. If the audience was to take away today from circular economy in UAE, what would be your key thinking, your key recommendation that you would like to see happen in the region to really help it embrace a circular economy?
Maybe how to monitor the circular economy. Climate targets are easy to understand. For example, a temperature limit to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which we can translate into limit greenhouse gases emissions by country and by industry. In France, our objective is to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 138 million tons by 2030. It's an ambition target that everyone can understand and try to achieve. For the impact of raw materials, the targets themselves are more complicated to define. Various targets have been tried, such as halving our per capita consumption of raw materials, but scientifically, we don't even know if it would be the right target to achieve sustainability. Some countries have defined a circularity index which takes waste into account. Maybe it could be further explored and refined, but we are not yet. We are not there yet. We are also testing environmental labeling with consumers, a score that could inform us about our impact and therefore get consumers to choose lower impact products. This work is in progress in France, but we are actively looking into it.
Thank you for that. And Ali, as a key stakeholder within the region, your response, please.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing in my view is changing the mindset from perceiving waste as waste to waste as resource. I think that's the key thing. When we realize the potential, which is not only preserving the environment and making our lives, cleaner and safer for generations to come, but also the potential of capturing the value within that resource. For me, that's, I think, the most important thing.
If I can just ask you a quick follow-on question to that, the change in the culture and the mindset, presumably you mean not just in terms of stakeholders and operators, but right the way through to consumers,
yes,
everybody.
Absolutely, and really it starts from schools, and we're happy and proud with our partners to be engaged directly with schools to ensure that we start accessing the future young, bright minds of the generations and changing that mindset so they start perceiving each waste as a resource and understanding the value of that.
Excellent, thank you for that. Carlos, over to you. What's your key recommendation for the region to make sure we embrace a circular economy?
I really support Ali's point. First of all, changing mindset is key, and changing mindset leading to changing the paradigm. This is also important because we need to change this paradigm that we live in a, let's say, infinite world. We need to understand that we have boundaries, we have limits, and we are surpassing those limits. The most recent reports show that we are consuming more natural resources than the planet can replenish in a year. We have surpassed the boundaries of air pollution, of contamination. We are affecting people's health, and this affects the most vulnerable ones. So we really need to change this paradigm that either we work all together and this is would be my point, Darren. Either we work in partnerships, in collaboration, to make it happen, because working in silos, it's simply won't lead us to where we want to go. So my key recommendation would be, let's establish the right partnerships, let's bring everybody together on this journey to really have a chance to continue living in this planet.
Thank you for that, Carlos. So we've got mindsets, we've got collaboration. You're left with trying to find what's the other key recommendation that you would make, Richard.
Thank you, Darren. I mean, the first thing I think is wonderful to hear from this particular discussion is that we all think that the circular economy is critical to tackling climate change. And that's one thing you don't always hear. If we're going to achieve the targets the ambitious targets, we're going to have to embrace the circular economy. And that has tremendous potential. So, do I think collaboration is important? Do I think system change is important? Absolutely. I also think the prioritization by governments is absolutely key. And that's the other thing I've taken from this, is that's what's happening here. So that's fantastic. You've got that direction. That can lead to collaboration. That can also lead to innovation. And let's not detract from the fact that one of the great things about the circular economy is it drives innovative approaches. If we are going to deliver these circular systems, we need innovation. So leadership and innovation is my final cause.
Thank you very much. When we look at this, it's the first time that we're properly discussing waste at a COP event, and I think that's fantastic to hear. And waste management, to me, is an easy win to help work towards a sustainable future and delivering the challenges ahead. We sadly run out of time. I could be talking about this topic all day, as I know each of you could as well, but interesting discussions. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to the audience as well. Thank you very much.